Hello everyone, welcome back. My name is Dr. Vijay Bhatia and today we are going to talk about human reactions to experience. What are the different reactions to experience by the human being? Normally, during our lifetime, we have number of experiences, number of situations, number of people we have met. We have learned how to act and behave in those circumstances, and they become a pattern of our behavior. And it's easier for us to behave in that way. That will help you to understand the situation and react. As human beings, we have certain structural body made of proteins and other materials, muscles, heart and lungs, and they react to the certain bodily feelings, experiences, and the psychology and the mind about learning and making the plans and taking actions. And the society teaches us the lessons that we should be doing in certain situations and being in certain ways. You heard about the traffic light experience. You see a red light and you stop. Why do you stop? Because the society tells you the law is there and you follow that law. And this is part of us, part of our schema, that we will behave in similar way in different circumstances. When we see the red light, we stop. So what is experience? Experience is the first person effect or influence of an event or subject gained through involvement in or exposure to it. The term does not imply that useful or long-term learning or the acquisition of skill necessarily takes place as a consequence of the experience, though the two are often associated, and experience is often used as a proxy for competence. A large amount of learning, of knowledge and skill is associated with experience, and experience is necessary, though not always sufficient component of the learning of physical skills. So you saw the red light, you stop. We have learned it and we take an action. As a child, over a period of time, we have learned a number of these things, and we have developed certain ideas and beliefs, and we call them schemas if we tend to do the same thing again in similar situation. These are stored in the future to take similar action that you have learned as a child, adolescent or adult. You tend to use same schemas, or you may uphold that schema, or you may want to react opposite to that, or you want to just avoid that schema at all. Normally, whenever there is any kind of event or situation, either stressful situation, we have a response in our body called somatic response. Like your muscles are getting tense and they are ready for action. And there's emotional response, like your heart is racing, you are sweating a little bit, or maybe opposite, that it is getting calmer and you feel more relaxed. And the psychological response is normally that body wants to reduce the tension if there is anything, and there are if it is a stressful situation, there are coping strategies body uses, which is mainly one is problem solving and emotion reduction techniques, and the other one is psychological response is normally to help you in future as well, to either avoid, fight, or flight. Any new situation experience generates these similar feelings, and mind wants to minimize the effects of these. However, everything we have learned may not be the right way of learning, and there are things that we may have learned as growing up which are maladaptive because they are causing distress to either yourself or to the society if you keep on behaving in a similar way. So today we are going to talk more about these, what maladaptive schemas we generated over the lifetime that can affect us in a bad way. So there are three, we already mentioned them: freeze, flight, avoid, and fight or do the opposite. So the first experience or schema, we are talking mainly of early maladaptive schema. You were told and you were believed and you had this schema that you are better than everyone else and you should be allowed to do what I want. So if you are upholding this schema and as an adult you may start bullying others, you become a bully into getting your own way, you brag about your own accomplishments. On the other hand, if you do not like this schema that you are brought up with, you might want to avoid that, triggering that schema. So you will avoid situations in which he or she is average, not superior. And in the third scenario, you do not believe this at all and you want to act opposite to that. So what you will do, you will attend excessively to the need of others. Another example, insufficient self-control and insufficient self-discipline. Can't contain emotions and or impulses. That is your schema. That is what you believe. If you are upholding this belief as an adult, gives up easily on routine tasks. And if you want to be in another seat where you don't want to trigger that schema, you will avoid employment of accepting responsibility. So if there is any job where you have to take the full responsibility, you will avoid taking that job because you know that you may act impulsively. In the third scenario, you act opposite, becomes overly self-controlled and self-disciplined. Another example, subjugation. Your early maladaptive schema is subjugation. Always do what others want because I am not important. If you keep on upholding that belief, let others, individuals, control situations and make choices. And if you want to avoid that schema, you avoid situations that might involve conflict with another individual. And if you act opposite to that schema, you rebel against authority. Now remember here, I keep on saying that if you uphold, avoid, or act opposite, because these schemas are in your mind, and any trigger, any situation will trigger the response in you. Sometimes you don't have to be actually in the situation, you simply have to think of that situation and this will trigger the schema. So therefore, that's where the avoidance, and we try not to trigger that belief and schema that so therefore the person is trying to avoid. Another example of self-sacrifice: do everything for everyone else to keep the peace. That is your belief when you were growing up, and if you are upholding that belief when you grow up, gives a lot to others and ask for nothing in return. And if you want to avoid that, avoid triggering the schema, you will avoid situations involving giving or taking. And if you want to act opposite as an adult, gives as little or to others as possible. Another example, approval seeking. Seeking what other people think is very important. So that is your belief, that is your schema, that you have belief that other people, whatever they are thinking and whatever they are doing is important. If you as an adult keep on upholding that belief, you act to impress others. Whereas if you want to avoid that, triggering that schema in your mind, you will avoid interacting with those whose approval is coveted. So, and in the third scenario, where you want to act opposite to that schema, goes out of the way to provoke the disapproval of others, stays in the background. In the third scenario, negativity, pessimism, your early maladaptive schema is everything always goes wrong, and even if it's gone right, there is something wrong. If you keep on upholding that schema, you focus on the negative, ignores constantly, goes on great lengths to avoid any possible negative outcome. And if you're in the avoid triggering the schema, drinks to blot out pessimistic feeling and unhappiness. So when we say drink, you can take other drugs or other things to block out pessimistic feelings because you don't like this belief which you have developed as a child. And if you are in the fight mode of that schema, then you become overly optimistic and denies unpleasant realities. Another one, emotional inhibition. That is your early maladaptive schema. Don't show emotions because others might not like you or you might lose control. If you uphold that schema, maintains a calm, emotionally flat demeanor. If you want to flight or avoid that triggering the schema, avoid situations in which people discuss or express feelings. And in the third scenario, where you act opposite, awkwardly tries to be the life of the party, even though it feels forced and unnatural. Another early experience, unrelenting standards, hypercriticalness, and the belief you have or the schema, the early maladaptive schema, is that you have to be perfectionist. If you still hold that schema, spends inordinate amounts of time trying to be perfect. But if you want to avoid triggering that schema, avoids or procrastinates in situations and tasks in which performance will be judged. And if you are in the opposite mode, does not care about standards at all, does tasks in a hasty, careless manner. Another early maladaptive schema of punitiveness. People should be punished for their mistake. If you are still holding that schema, treats self and others in a harsh, punitive manner. If you avoid that schema, avoids others for fear of punishment. If you are in the fight mode, behaves in an overly forgiving way. Thank you for listening this. I have adapted above slides from the course I attended, and this is about Scheme Therapy, a Practitioner's Guide, the Guildford Press, by Professor J. Young, J. Klosko, and M. Vishal. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please press the like button, share with your friends, and subscribe the channel. And this is the second in the series of early maldevelopment coping responses, and there's another video, number 1. I see you again.